Good afternoon. Welcome to the Diagnostics Conference week. We'll be conducting online sessions every day this week at this time frame. At this point in time, I'm going to introduce our colleague, Paul Meester, who's going to give a presentation about the current state. Paul?
Hello everyone. As John said, my name is Paul Meester and I'll be looking at the current state of application management. Well, it's about Smallworld applications, but actually application management in general. And if I go back to our beautiful comic, we'll be introducing every day with a comic strip. You'll see that the current state for many companies looks a lot like fighting fires. And even though in this strip the person on the other end of the line thinks it's very exciting and maybe even sexy to be a fireman and fighting fires, actually as a system controller it's not so much. And we will do everything we can to help you avoid fighting fires. This presentation is part of a journey to easier application management, and the journey leads us past monitoring myths, privacy, GDPR, KPIs and proactive monitoring to the future state of application management, which would be the desired state. But today we talk about the current state. And to do that, I start with a small story. It's about Henry, the systems manager. But in fact, today Henry feels more like a fireman. Henry is sitting in his office, slowly stirring a cup of coffee with extra sugar. He's thinking about how to address the growing amount of complaints from his users. His company recently moved from an old bespoke small application to a state-of-the-art, out-of-the-box solution provided by GE. Before migrating to this new solution, a lot of work had been done to ensure that the new system supports all the important business processes. But once it's there, the users keep on coming up with all sorts of reasons why the new application isn't working. Ensuring the success of a migration to a standard application means ensuring widespread user adoption and satisfaction. But reaching out to individual users for feedback can be time-consuming and difficult. And in addition, quite often a discussion like that is clouded with emotion. So a tool is needed that provides the company with objective data about user adoption and not subjective information about whether a user likes a change or not. Fortunately for Henry, he's been given access to diagnostics, and so diagnostics gives him the information he needs. Using this information, Henry now is able to see where users are getting stuck and is able to help them understand and appreciate the new application. So satisfaction and adoption are growing every day. So this is an example and one of many examples of how, without information, the current state can be that you are fighting your fires. So let's have a look at this current state. And I recently came to see this approach of the four types of work that an IT organization has. And maybe it applies as well to your organization. It should. Most important are the business demands. All IT systems are there to make the business perform its functions and to support business processes. Then, of course, there are the system maintenance functions that are necessary to make sure the systems keep on performing the way they should and maybe get updated, get more secure. For instance, updates released by General Electric themselves, or new functions or new versions of supporting applications. Then there's IT maintenance, looking at network, databases, file servers, operating systems, everything that supports the whole application infrastructure. all those functions and all those three types of work have their release cycles. That mean that new information or new functions are introduced to the IT system and also to Smallworld and its supporting layers regularly. It's all fine, but then there's a fourth type of work, and that's the type of work that you don't want, which is the unplanned work. We all know that things happen, but we never know when it happens. But it's very important to be prepared. So one thing is sure, when unplanned work happens, it actually stops you from doing the other types of important work. Now back to diagnostics and how it can help you with the current state and help you to reduce the impact of unplanned work. So I looked at it from the four different important types of work. And first for the business functions. So because diagnostics monitors everything, it immediately signals if there's an adoption problem for new functions or the system as a whole. It shows you if there are training needs when users cannot use certain functions or try to go around them, and you can address that. It also shows when certain processes are being held up at people's desks. It could be virtual desks, but when information stops at a certain point, diagnostics is able to highlight that. When looking at system maintenance side, it signals performance degradation due to new versions or bugs. It highlights database issues or databases filling up. It does startup time monitoring and also active user count, so you can see whether you're running out of licenses. All this prevents problems from happening. If you go to the more low-level IT maintenance side, it keeps on looking at servers, availability of servers, load balancing between servers. It looks for memory leaks, and it could also highlight network problems for servers in a certain network part. And lastly, but not leastly, if unplanned work happens, with the information from diagnostics, you can quickly see whether there are software problems or whether it's user errors, where the performance problems are coming from if they're there, from the database, from applications, or from the network. And quite often users talk about regression of the application. So they say, well, a month ago this used to work much better or much faster, and with the information of diagnostics you're able to actually compare the two times and check whether that's true or not. So the information provided by diagnostics makes your current state a lot more manageable. Common problem areas are, well, too many tickets for level 2 or 3 support because the level 1 first line support people don't have the information to solve an issue. A lot of time is spent on actually searching for missing information. Another problem is the lack of detailed information about errors or about the workflow a user is going through. What is he trying to do at that moment? And be able to reproduce an error for GE, it's quite often necessary to do it in the Cambridge database, which is not always very practical given the difference in data model and situations and applications on Cambridge and your own application. So how is diagnostics able to help with that? Well, it has very clear dashboards that identify and help you identify the most common problems. It shows you exactly what a user was doing, which workflow he was following, so there's no guessing there. It can report on errors that occur more than a certain threshold number of times. And it also has information about which users actually quite often have same errors, so they can get training. And it frees up your support resources from doing, well, superfluous searching for information, and it will increase user satisfaction. So in short, the main benefits are a reduction of number of requests for your support organization. It solves the lack of detailed information. It also helps with incident reproduction because it quite often makes it unnecessary to reproduce an error in Cambridge, because with all the information provided, it's easy to pinpoint the error. It distinguishes between user errors on one hand and system errors on the other hand, so the right kind of support can be given. It has all the details of user actions and so helps you pinpoint the root cause for whatever issue there is. Those are the main benefits. So with all that information, Henry is no longer feeling like a fireman, and if someone asked him if everything is under control, he can then say, yes, I've got it under control. So again, with diagnostics, support for all the 4 major types of work for any IT organization is being given in abundance. This is my presentation about the current state and how diagnostics supports that. Every day this week we have a question. So there will be 5 questions, and for people that answer all 5 questions, there's a chance to win your own very beautiful diagnostics coffee mug that you can carry around, well, if you're going to the office or at home. At the end of the week on Friday, you can get a link to submit your answers. And the question for today, day 1, is what are the 4 types of work for IT organizations? I hope you looked at it well, but this is the question: what are the 4 types of work for IT organizations? Then to tell you what we're going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow will be all about monitoring and also important myths about what monitoring is and what it isn't. So I hope you find that interesting and hope to see you back tomorrow. Now there is time for questions. And I'm looking at John because John will have the list of questions for me if there are any.
Paul, great presentation. Thank you very much. If you're watching on the stream, you can submit your questions in the chat, and hopefully I'll see them pop up here. In the meantime, I'm going to start off with a question for you, Paul. It was very interesting because you mentioned from from a bespoke application to an out-of-the-box solution. That sounds like migration.
Yep.
How does diagnostics assist with migration processes?
Okay, that's a good question. Of course, it assists with migration, and a lot of our customers actually use it for that. It assists in many ways. If I go back to these 4 types of work, then on the system maintenance side and also the business demand side, when migrating, diagnostics can show you exactly which functions in the old application and the current application are used a lot, but also which functions aren't used at all. So if you want to make sure that the new application provides support for all the right business processes, looking at which functions are being used the most is a very good indicator for where you have to look in the new application. Also, it provides all the timing for all the functions in the old application. So if there are comparable functions in the new application, you can make sure that they perform the way they should, because users are allergic to any type of performance degradation, which is very logical, and this keeps a tap on that. John, is that what you were looking for? Or?
Absolutely. Thank you. Good. Don't see any questions yet, so I'm going to confront you with another one. You have that wonderful chart on screen. Where did you get that from?
Well, yes. As I said, I recently kind of was introduced to this way of looking at the types of work. It actually comes from the DevOps principle, and I was reading a very interesting book, and because I kind of foresee this question, I copied a picture of it here, and it's called the Phoenix Project, and it's a really interesting and gripping story about an organization where various departments are kind of not working so well together, and how a DevOps principle is slowly introduced and basically makes them a winning company. And For any organization, whether you're from a business side or from an IT side, in this DevOps principle, you're all working together to make sure the company meets its goals. To me, it was really an interesting introduction. So yeah, that's where it came from.
Okay, great. I don't see any questions yet. I hope I'm not missing anything on the iPad. Um, Let me think. Are there any other questions coming up?
That's another possibility tomorrow.
Oh, yes. No more questions? Good. Then, thank you very much, Paul. Wonderful presentation.
Pleasure.
And we are going to continue on with our sessions tomorrow, same time, same place. So log in, and at that point in time, we're going to be talking about monitoring this, and we'll be getting a presentation from Koen Portners at that point in time. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Hope we have a little bit more questions. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.
Good evening. Bye bye.